first guest today is Jack Carr, a sophomore at Willamette University. He's a local product of West High. He graduated in 2023. He was our 2024 Alaska State Am runner-up and 2022 Anchorage Open winner. He spends his summers working at the Anchorage golf course, and when he's not working, he's there grinding, and he's off on some kind of trip with his dad, his dad Nate, and his brother Henry. I get jealous every time I see the pictures from Golf with Your Kids, Mr. Nathan Carr. But I wanted to welcome him. And Jack, I want to thank you for being the first person to go through this interview process as we try to create some exposure for the Alaska Golf Association. So welcome, Jack Carr.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. I'm excited to do this. I think it's great what you're doing here with these interviews. And even in the last few years, noticing the amount of kids playing now in Alaska is just awesome. And so maybe by me here saying how I did it, it could help them if they want to play college golf because it's very attainable.
Yeah. And so let's kind of jump into that just right away. So tell me
Mhm.
a little bit how you got your start playing golf in Alaska. I mean, obviously we're a state known for our pretty brutal winters, but a lot of people don't know that, if we get good summers, our courses can be pretty good. But, obviously with the shutdown of Eagle Glen, 7 years ago, we've seen the courses become more busy, but I'd really like to know, as a child, how'd you get your start? Was there someone that inspired you? And, we'll just kind of keep going right through that. So if you could just start off telling us some of that, I think that would be great because we see a lot of kids and, sometimes the start is different for everyone.
Yeah. Um, well, it kind of filtered from my dad. My dad fell in love with the game and then started creating his own like social media conglomerate with the had a little blog for a while, Car for the Course. And when he fell in love with it, I guess, he took me and Henry out to Eagle Glen's range and got exposed to it. And just because he loved it, we loved it. It was a way for me to go bond with my brother and dad and grandpa as well. And yeah, I got to, and then when we do have those brutal winters, I was thankful enough to get to travel to like my grandma's place in California and play on her little par 3 course. And my dad never like overworked me, never like forced me to play, and so it kind of just manifested naturally.
Yeah. And so did you participate in any kind of junior golf program, or did you sign up as part of like lesson or a camp or anything like that? Or was it kind of just all self-taught?
Uh, I would say for the first, I probably was going to the range with my dad in like kindergarten, and that was like the most I would be like into it was at that time was just going to the range. But then there would be, my as we expressed more interest, I did drive, chip, and putt every year, and then there would be a couple little junior camps every once in a while, I think, that I would do. I worked with Blake Smith when he would do little junior camps every once in a while. But for the most part, it was like self-taught, go out and try and hit a ball with the stick, see if just kind of self-taught. And then as I got more into it, I was searching for more technical lessons with Blake.
Sure. And I
Yeah.
mean, what was that like? I mean, as a kid, obviously, it's golf's not an easy sport, obviously, and so it's kind of interesting. I mean, did you stay on the range for a while before you started doing rounds, or would you go out and maybe do 9 holes, or go out with your dad and play a couple holes and then ride in the cart, or what do you remember about those earliest experiences other than just try to hit the ball?
Yeah. Earliest experiences was on going to the range with my dad, just trying to hit the ball as me and my brother hit the ball as hard as we can, try and hit it as straight as we can. And then a lot of times just going out and playing like you said, a few holes, 9 holes. I remember playing my first 18 holes pretty young and being just exhausted. But yeah, like I would also do the PGA Junior League, and that one was a very very mellow, very fun, get to play with other kids, like Sunday thing I did with Henry. And so that was another like earlier experience. But we joined that kind of late.
So how does the PGA Junior League work for any, like say I'm, a 12-year-old kid that's gotten into golf?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what that entails when you're doing that up here.
So I did it for I think 2 summers, maybe one. Not and joined it kind of late. But from what I remember, it would just be once a week. There'd be no practices or anything. We showed up to Moose Run Golf Course and we'd go play 9 holes on the hill and just kind of you get to play against these other kids or just kind of go play just 9 holes for fun. Like it was like rigorous rules, I guess, like just don't cheat, I guess, but like it was also very chill. Like it's just kids of all ages here. It's just kind of so like I mean, I think I remember me and Henry being on the older side. I think I was like 12 and Henry was 10, and we were paired with like a 7-year-old. To be fair, he was a stud, but uh, yeah, it was just a fun little Sunday night, once a week thing that I got to go do.
There
Yeah,
was a kid that grew up here that was kind of a national contender in that chip drive or drive chip and putt competition.
yeah,
He went on to play Division 1, didn't he? From
yeah. Ian, yeah.
Ian. Yeah.
hmm
Where's he at now?
I think a school in Illinois, or maybe he transferred. I forgot. My dad would know, but I can't quite remember. But yeah, he's been balling. He was always up there chipping and a lot of time spent around the green, which is kind of what you need to do. But
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I mean, tell me about like some of those challenges, how you kind of deal with that adversity. I mean, thinking about it now, right? As a kid, you don't really notice the adversity you have maybe from a golf course condition standpoint, because this is all you got. But you kind of you mentioned that you were able to be fortunate enough to go down to your grandma's house and play par threes in California. And, obviously as time went on, you probably got to go play some other courses more wholly. But, from a condition standpoint, how big of an effect does that have on maybe the practice routines that you maybe implement during the summer versus when you're down at Willamette for the school year?
Yeah, the biggest difference is the almost practice of patience I have up in Alaska. I mean, the biggest difference I'll notice is the greens. Just uh, down here in the lower 48, they just roll much truer. It's easier to make putts, and it's more predictable chipping. And so in Alaska, it's just I just got, I guess, used to it and just a little bit more patient. The biggest adversity I face is when I come back down here. I I can't I can't hit a putt short. Like I am hammering putts just a lot. And so biggest thing is just the difference in greens. Uh, but I don't, it's not even too terrible at being able to play in Alaska. It's just short. And then it's a lot of time spent in the dome. And that's when it's hard to continue to practice the short game where it kind of matters most as you get better and better.
Sure, sure. And so, when you were growing up as a kid and let's say you were just getting into golf, were you participating in any other kind of sports, or was it always golf all the time?
No, absolutely not. I grew up actually like the first sports I remember playing were actually tennis and soccer. Um, and then I would play basketball almost every winter up until freshman year high school. Uh, But yeah, I didn't really get too serious into golf until COVID, which funny enough, a lot of my teammates will say the same thing. Like nobody was really playing really competitively until COVID, and a lot of guys decided during COVID they wanted to try and play college golf. And so, you know, I think I'm glad that's the case because like you don't have to know right away if you want to play college golf or not. Like you can continue to go play other sports like soccer, baseball, like because I think it makes you a better athlete and it'll make you a better golfer later on. But no, I didn't just play golf. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So, and what was there kind of a moment in that journey then? You've kind of gone through, okay, I've started at the range and, I did some kind of PGA Junior League, which was a little bit more laid back from a competitive standpoint. I'm still doing these other sports. I
hmm
like golf. I don't know how serious I want to take it. Do you recall vividly in your mind a moment where you said, "Hey, I maybe want to put some more effort into this than I have in the past"?
Yeah. It's very odd. I was just sitting in my room one day and kind of I was starting to, during COVID, just starting to go to the range every day because with only taking three classes a quarter during COVID, like I never had to like be in school past noon. And so I was going to the golf course. I was going to the dome every evening and I just started to like find myself getting much better and better. And then I would just sit in my room one day and I re told my parents, I was like, I want to play college golf. Like that's something I want to do now because I'd stopped playing basketball. And so at that point, I was just focusing on golf and they helped me out to start that process of figuring out how to do so.
Yeah, and so, I'm really interested in hearing about your journey to getting to a college golf program because obviously, I remember talking to your dad about some of the struggles of, getting into junior only events in order to build some kind of a golf resume that you
Yeah.
could market to colleges. And obviously one of the difficult things was, he had mentioned that because you were only a member of the Alaska Golf Association and you could only be a member of one state organization, it was difficult for you to find events to play in, like in Washington or Oregon, where maybe you could have stacked yourself up a little bit more from a junior perspective to put on, like, let's say, your application when you're trying to get in touch with coaches. So I'm sure that you're interesting. It's a very interesting journey. And could you tell, us and the viewers a little bit more about how the beginning of that process played out to the middle to, okay, I found the spot I'm going to go to.
Yeah. So I guess to start was that just tell my parents, okay, I've been to college golf. So then it was almost college golf has gotten so much bigger in the last, I would say probably 10 years. And so there is so much actual like databases and uh like websites you could go to kind of mostly to see if it was even how attainable was it. Um I was lucky enough to have a couple of connections with some other coaches and they kind of told me how like college golf works and how that recruiting process is. And so I started looking at golf stat at the time and just seeing what these schools were scoring. Golf stats, college golf has moved away from golf stat to now this what's called scoreboard by clipped. And it's just where every division, D1, D2, D3, I'm not sure about JUCO or not, but where everybody has their tournament results and scores, and you could see individual players' rankings. You could see teams, every kid's scoring average. And so by looking at that, I kind of could see myself like, I was like, okay, this is where I would fit in if I was there. Like these kids are averaging this. Oh, I think I could. get that good in 2 years. And so another one I another resource I used was I think it's literally just called call it just college golf database or something like a college golf guide. And you create a profile and I was able to see scoring averages, what average GPA of students were, the acceptance rate. It kind of helped me narrow down academics and the golf side of things. And so then, and it had coaches' emails. So I would look at a school and I would look and see if I would fit. If I think I could be there, write an emails with a link to like this YouTube compilation of my golf swings that my dad put together, a one with as many scores as I can do. Being from Alaska and only being part of the Anchorage Golf Association, it was mostly just local tournaments like the match play or the state am. And but that, I mean, if you send swing videos and you have tournament scores, like coaches will look, and it never hurts to send anything to any coaches. It often helps to repetitively do so. Like I know coaches appreciate when you send them something initially and then check in 2 weeks later and be like, this is me working on my iron swing, and it's more swing videos. Just keep showing that you're interested in places. If, and oftentimes, almost every time they reach back, like I only had maybe two or three schools that didn't reply back, whether it being like, we already have our 2023 recruits and we're good with what we got, or like setting up Zoom meetings. And so that's kind of how it worked on reaching out to schools. And then it was just continuing to work, show them that I'm working on my golf game, show them any scores in tournaments that I can. And thankfully I was playing well in tournaments. So like the few ones that I had were still good enough for my coach was interested.
Sure. And so, I mean, how big of a piece did Blake play in helping you figure out this path that you were going on?
Oh, Blake played a huge part. I was seeing him once a week for a good amount of time during COVID, and he really just helped me kind of learn more about my swing, how to become more independent with it, and how to just helping me learn kind of my swing itself. So now that I'm on my own in college, like I can video myself, and because of all the times I've spent with Blake, I can see my all my tendencies, keep an eye on certain things because of what I've done with Blake. Um, yeah, he helped me a lot on the technical side of things. Great mental coach as well, helped me come up with a routine to prepare for tournaments, how to uh get comfortable going low. That wasn't really one that stuck with me was, just every time you go low, just remember the good shots and be comfortable going low. Don't be scared to go low. And he played a huge part in mentally preparing myself for competitive golf.
And you're still working with him today when you're back in the summertime, right? I mean, I mean, I've seen you there a few times
Yeah.
with him, but you know, that journey from whatever handicap you may or may not have. I mean, we hear it all the time that, going from, a 20 or 15 to, a 10 to a 7 or an 8, that margin is much of an easier uh, goal than, let's say somebody's a 7 and they want to get down to a 1. So, can you talk me through that process of, okay, maybe I'm a 15 or I'm a 10 or wherever it was that you started? Because today I think I looked and you're sitting at, plus 1.4. And I mean, if every shot from 1 to 0 to then being a plus handicap, I mean, the amount of effort and things that you work on have to be so much different than what it takes to get from a 15 to, let's say, a 7. So, you know, where was it that you kind of said, hey, I can't just bash balls all day, even though that's the most fun thing to do. But how did that kind of play out from lowering your handicap to where it is today?
Yeah, at some point when I mean, I was probably when I wanted to play college golf my sophomore year of high school, I was probably a seven, maybe five. Uh, and I just a lot at that point at a seven or five, it's still a lot of, I felt like for me personally, a lot of technique and stuff. But then as you're trying to get from that like three to a zero, it becomes like keeping your putter in check. And a lot of it is short game. It gets, you got to be able to, because you're not going to hit every green. And so being able to get up and down and save shots around the green is huge because that's where I see the biggest difference in myself is where I can get over a putt outside 10 feet and I feel like I can make it. And that's just how I feel like I've gotten to where I was like a three to a now a one plus one. Um, Biggest thing is also managing courses, not just going on every tee box and banging driver. It's like, where's the pin placement? Where's the best place to miss? And that making it easier on yourself rather than, you know, being aggressive. And then if you miss on the wrong side, then uh, it's harder to make pars. And so those big number avoidances are huge when you get to lower and lower handicaps.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Mhm.
I want to talk about this a little bit because this is more recent in our minds, but 2024 State Am, you know, um, at an absolute diabolical creek course this year. But you
Yeah.
Shane, I mean, Shane Sundberg, the winner obviously this year
Hmm.
and got to participate in the USAM. You guys really kind of separated yourself early and continued to stay in those top two spots throughout the entire event essentially. And then you get to that Sunday, and all of a sudden you're now getting to play against somebody else that's on their own path of playing junior college at this point in time and maybe trying to go to a Division 1 or Division 3 school. So
Hmm.
I'm sure that was a pretty incredible, if not very competitive situation from two guys that are used to competing, 9 months out of the year when the rest of the field maybe only gets the 3 or 4. But um, can you kind of walk us through what that final round was like? I mean, obviously it was you and it was Shane
Hmm.
Sundberg and Hunter Schmitz, three of our youngest competitors in that event, and guys like 15-time champion Greg Sanders even struggled on that course. And, you had Rich Teeters, match play champion, struggling, and you had me, you had other guys that, just couldn't figure it out. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that final round and the feelings that you're going through as you're warming up and, oh boy, there's only three of us left out here warming up. And then you get out there
Yeah.
and every shot counts.
Yeah. That final round it was intense. I think Shane's a great player. I really enjoyed competing with him that weekend. Pushes me a little. I think to see another kid my age when uh it pushes me a little bit 'cause it's like I just want to prove that much better. Like I'm the better of us two at that age. He got the better of me this year. I'm hoping to bounce back 2025, but it was really competitive. The front nine especially. I kind of unraveled a little bit on the back nine, but front nine, we were each one under with no bogeys. We matched like our front our front nine. We were just matching shot, and every shot mattered, and just trying to stay as locked in as possible. But going through my process, and I felt really prepared for it. Knowing the course as well. I didn't do a lot of range sessions before the tournament. I feel like the better you get, the more time you should be on the course. Just because at that point it's just practicing playing rather than practicing just banging balls on the range. But yeah, that final round was intense. Not a lot of chatter. Um, but yeah, a lot of he had some fist pumps. It's great, and it makes you want to come back when you're in an environment like that. Like just being in that competitive environment where you feel like nothing else matters except winning. Like it's fantastic. It's exhilarating.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Hmm.
I mean, talk about just, tell everyone what that course is like in a competitive environment. I mean, I've talked to a few people and I've said to them to this day, I don't care where I've played golf. I mean, that course is still probably in the top 5 of hardest courses that I've ever played because of just the amount of trouble that you can get yourself into from a seemingly innocent play. I mean, you could do
Yeah.
everything right and be in trouble. So tell everyone kind of about your experience when you're looking at that course. Are you saying, hey, I might be willing to give up being 50 yards closer to this green simply because I know that the statistics says if I'm hitting a 2 iron off the tee or a fairway wood instead of my driver, I'm less likely to cost myself a shot. So talk a little bit about, you know, maybe some situations that are unique to playing that creek course.
Yeah. It's almost such a relief coming down here because Alaska has these courses, and especially Moose Run, like the Creek course and AGC, where it's these dense tree-lined courses where you hit in the trees, it's almost a 50-50 chance lost ball. And so it's so demanding off the tee that from tee to green, you're just locked in like it's a nervy 6 footer every time. Like you just have to be focused every shot because if you miss it, it could super demanding off the tee, visually intimidating to see these dense trees. And it does take driver out of play quite a bit for being one of the longer courses in Alaska, which is kind of interesting. Just because of how like tree lined it is. And sometimes like because of that, with pace of play, they'll make it hazard because you have these high handicappers playing in the same tournament and they want to speed up pace of play because people go through like 2 sleeves of balls around there. It's quite a bit of lost balls. Sometimes the greens aren't in great condition, but this year they were quite good. I felt like for how it's been in years past, but yeah, quite demanding off the tee.
So, and you would say that, you mentioned that it makes you almost happy to go back to where you're at because
Yeah,
I don't know, and you can tell me from the courses that you played in your freshman year down at Willamette, you're probably not finding a lot of trouble like that where the natural overgrowth just takes everything, or if there is, the width of what your landing zones and your target areas are so much bigger that you would have to do something dramatically wrong and error to not be able to find your ball.
yeah. The courses here, they're designed. I feel like that course is not. It's so hard because it's not OB, and so I don't feel like they make it. Like I feel like courses here are designed where if you hit it that off track, it is OB, and so it's a little bit the course is like designed a little bit to avoid hitting it OB as much. And if there is a tree line course, it's not the same overgrowth density of Alaska tree lines. So it's like I hit into the trees here and I find a ball punch out and it's fine. In Alaska, or at Moose Run, you hit it into the overgrowth trees and it's a lost ball half the time. And if you do get to find it, it's almost you often have to take it unplayable or punch out backwards. Like coming here, I feel like I can be a little bit looser off the tee, hit a lot more drivers, which is my favorite club. But yeah, I think that's what is nice about playing courses like Moose Run and AGC. It makes you better about hitting fairways, at least for me,
Does it kind of
finding knowing
serve
the importance.
does
Yeah.
it kind of serve as kind of a mental, reset essentially? I'm curious about what you just said. You have to be so dialed in. Um, when you're playing in your events down there in college, a lot of the times you're kind of going into those knowing guys are gonna throw up a 3 or 4 under most of the time. And you're, I assume, playing mostly at 7,000 yards most of the time. And I mean, Moose Run we played last year at what, 6,400. And so does it
Hmm.
almost serve as kind of a mental setup where, hey, I need to get more dialed in, or does it ever kind of serve that purpose of, you know what, okay, like I'm back in Alaska. I need to make sure that mentally I'm here and that I'm making good decisions. And when you get back to college, you're maybe making some different decisions too than throughout, let's say, 7 months later.
Yeah, the prepare like the way I prepare for tournaments is very different. And like down there, it's so different playing on a team. That's the other like bummer about Alaska is not being able to play on a team all too much growing up. And so uh playing down there, you feel a little added pressure because it's like my score doesn't just matter for me, it matters for uh three other four other guys around me. And so um going back to Alaska, it's a lot more of like a patient game. I feel you make a lot less birdies than you do uh down here. Here I feel like I play to be a little bit more aggressive, try and go out and make birdies. Back home, it's like par's a good score because putting is not a gimme. I like that like I feel like 3 footers here are gimmies, and then back home a 3 footer is a nervy putt because one little pebble, one little weird tuffle of grass, and it's off course. And so it's definitely a lot. The expectations going into rounds are a lot different. Um, Alaska, it's more hover around par, and here it's like try and go as low as you can.
Sure. And do you think
Hmm.
that that's played into your ability to handle some adversity? I mean, we all have those rounds where putts don't, go left or they don't go right as we anticipated them. But, coming down to Oregon from Alaska, where, like you mentioned, there might be a pebble, simply because of what our soil composition looks like,
Hmm.
or maybe there is a unique break simply because of where we're at from a sea level perspective or which course you're playing. But, those are all the things that kind of make or break an event when you're playing up here. Whereas down there, I mean, I don't know what you've witnessed, but somebody misses a 3 footer, and that can be pretty rattling down there. Versus, I mean, here it's pretty standard that a 3 footer could easily be, maybe a 25% make. So has that helped in the transition to, facing maybe some adversity when you've gotten yourself into a tough spot down in college?
Absolutely. I hate to say it, but I've gotten comfortable when I'm playing with big numbers like doubles and triples, where it's like if it happens, I know that I can still score. I mean, I mean, for example, in qualifying, I was I shot 2 under with a triple. So it's like, just being knowing that a big number is not the end of the world, and being makes me be more patient. Say the biggest thing getting used to going coming down here is the change in expectation of seeing more rounds in the 60s, needing to see more rounds in the 60s rather than like and back home where I'm like, 73 is a great score, 74 is a great score, and for the courses we play. And so, uh, me having to chase scores is definitely the biggest shift in what I feel like competition is like. back home and here. Because I think, with the scores on paper don't look impressive at our state am this year, but bring the same guys down to a tournament in the lower 48, and I think the numbers are incredibly different. I think we had a tournament back home at Palmer, which was in great condition at the time, and the winning score was 8 under. And like that's a testament to like how tough Moose Run is, where it's like the same guys are uh shooting over par at a course that's super tree line, but then a course that's more similar to lower 48, they're going under par deep.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean that's a good point. Course conditions obviously play a factor in everything.
Hmm.
So obviously Willamette's a Division III school. So how did you land on saying, you know what, maybe I'm not going to go JUCO or I'm not going to go play NAIA, but Division III is maybe the fit that was good for you, versus maybe trying to do what Shane is doing, who's at a junior college, maybe trying to get a Division I opportunity. How did you land on Willamette?
Yeah, so I was looking, my conference is the Northwest Conference of Division III. I wanted to be closer to home, just at least one flight away. And so kind of was looking within that conference, Whitman, which is in Washington, Whitworth which is in Washington as well. Had one talk with Lewis and Clark, which is in Portland. And so wanted to be closer to home. I wanted to go, I mean, I'm here for an education as well. And so I ended up here, uh, knowing I'm a data science major. And so they have this growing data science program here. And uh, mostly I wanted to make sure I was also going to be able to have a good time with the golf guys and the team. And every every guy on this team will tell you they picked Willamette because of Coach Doherty. He's a great guy, put together a great program. We all want to win, but we also all want to have fun. So I've made a lot of great friends down here on this golf team and enjoyed every second of it.
And so education was just as important, if not more important, than maybe the golf itself. I mean, as is there aspirations to play professionally after at maybe some stage, or do you kind of know like, hey, this is a pathway to maybe playing more elite amateur golf, but I know that my career is going to come from somewhere else.
The second, I think, unless I make incredible strides in my golf game in the next 2 years, um, maybe low level professional tournaments. But I do like the idea of playing high level amateur tournaments and knowing that my uh, career will come on a different path. And so that's why I think I didn't pick the JUCO route so much, or D2. If you look at D2 schools, the education, in my opinion, was not as great as a lot of these D3 schools. And so I came here knowing like I will have a great time playing competitive golf on a team that wants to win. But I know I'll get a good education at the same time. So that's why I picked Division III. I think Division I has the same to offer but I just wasn't good enough to go play D1.
Yeah, it's quite the stepping stone. And I think even Ian, he had to leave Alaska for part of his high school in order to attain that. But what are some of the perks, of Division III? I mean, are they setting you up with clubs or the clothing, or how does that all work in regards to your practice schedules and from an organization standpoint?
Yeah, so here at Willamette, we're very thankful for the Creekside Country Club, which lets us use their facilities. And so we get free range balls and get to play for free. I'm going after this interview. I'm going to go play 9 holes with a teammate. Um, and then we get uniforms. This year we got a hat, some FootJoys, 3 polos, a quarter zip and a raincoat. So you get some gear, you get free a sleeve for every tournament you play in. Um, yeah, it's just basically if you want to play competitive free golf, D3 is pretty nice. And D3's also got a lot of like a lot of different levels of play where on the East Coast you got these teams that are hyper competitive and like almost could be playing low level D1, like Methodist, which is in North Carolina. They're been national champs uh more than a handful of times. And so, but then you also got teams like, Puget Sound where it's like, or these other teams in this conference where you got guys shooting mid 80s and but they're having a great time, getting to play. And so I think what's cool about D3 is it offers a lot of different levels of playing for different if you want to play competitive golf. Like there's teams that you need to average 72 to be on their A team, and then there's teams where, it's free competitive golf is enjoyable. So yeah,
So
it's sweet.
there's really a fit for anyone, depending on what you're looking for, is what
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you're kind of going through this process as maybe a junior golfer, if you were to tell somebody, let's say in Alaska, that's 14, 15, and maybe they're considering that this is something they want to do, because we have had quite the rapid expansion of more youth golfers appearing, on the range, on the course. They've got that new
Hmm.
program called Youth on Course in Alaska, which, allows them to
Yeah.
get out for $35 at any of the courses. What would you be telling someone from your experience on how they should go about maybe exposing themselves to these different opportunities that exist, maybe not in Alaska, but allow them to continue to play golf at maybe a competitive level, but allowing them to also get an education?
Yeah, I would say, you know, um, just go play as much as you can. Go have fun. Go compete with friends. If you can, try and get in as many tournaments as possible, and don't be scared to reach out to coaches. Send swing videos. Send scores in tournaments. Just try being from Alaska, your competitors down lower 48 have got more than 10 plus, 15 plus junior tournaments under their belt to show coaches. So just don't be scared to put yourself out there. Email, reach out. Every school's got a way to uh for you. Every school's got a way for you to reach out to coaches. It's not hard to find coaches' emails and they'll look at them. My coach personally, they'll never turn down if you want to visit a school, they'll never say no. It doesn't hurt to they say, my coach says it doesn't hurt to invite them. So coaches, as far as I've found, are willing to talk, work with you, figure out what goals you want, and there's never pressure. I've never had a coach put pressure on me to join their program at D3. They're more like, I want to make sure you find the right fit. And if that's not here, then no worries, by all means. They have your interest at heart. And so just reach out, play as much as you can, and have fun doing so, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, and so from a tournament experience standpoint, you know, junior golf tournaments in Alaska are somewhat limited depending on the situation. And so did you find value in joining? I mean, I remember the first time I saw you at one of the AGA adult tournaments, which was match play back in 2021 or 2019, whatever it was. Was there value in that? Did you feel welcome? Did you find yourself challenged in those kinds of environments? And that's kind of, it wasn't this big scary thing that I think that, anyone that maybe hadn't played a tournament wouldn't want to do. But I'd love to hear what your experience has been like playing in those, adult level tournaments here.
Yeah. Um, I think the Alaska Golf Association's got one of the best communities of golf I've ever seen, been a part of. It's super, I think, for junior golfers who want to sign up for these tournaments, it's like, they it's well worth it. It's very welcoming. I think if you're wanting to play in these competitive environments, can be intimidating for sure. I think, I see all these adults around me and their golf games are so much more mature than mine, like a lot steadier. I feel like I go out and I can have a good stretch of two or three holes but then at the same time I'll go and blow up. And so when you play with guys like Adam Baxter or, I feel like Aaron Roth were two guys that I remember playing with that match play where I felt like Aaron makes a lot of pars. And so that's intimidating at the time when I was first getting into it because I felt like I was making a lot of bogeys and birdies. And so there's a little like intimidation while they're so steady, but you feed off of it. Playing with these older guys, I think it makes you better when you play with good competition. Uh, and if you're young playing a tournament, of course you'll get the whole joshing about your age and stuff, but it's all fun and games. I love it. I love getting to go play in tournaments. My first tournament back, I was excited to see all you guys again and compete against you all. And yeah, I think it's a blast.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the community that we have up here probably is a little bit different than maybe a state organization like Oregon or Washington, where you know we're so much smaller that it kind of is a brotherhood. And while make no mistake that everyone that puts enough time into it wants to win, they're also the first ones to give you a congratulations if they don't perform as they did and you did, or so on and so forth. So I think that's some of the misconception about our organization that maybe exists, is that I'm not good enough, or these guys won't like me. That I don't find that that's ever been the case, and so I'm happy to hear that you've had a positive experience. Some of the things that we would almost ideally like to do that are in the works that I can't really speak to now, I think will help provide that nice introductory feel to the AGA versus that hyper competitiveness that maybe it's been for the last 10 to 15 years. But
Hmm.
I've got to ask, from a stroke or match play perspective, which one do you like your odds more in?
I think I make too many doubles and triples, so I think I'm better in match play. Um, it's also I think it's a lot more fun. I think you can get a little tiresome of stroke play. Um, but I think match play is a lot of fun where it's kind of like mano v mano, like other sports where it's like you see what your competitor's doing a little bit more rather than like you can. And so I think it's a lot more fun. It gets the competitive juices going a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, no, that
Yeah,
makes sense. I mean, everyone likes the idea of it's one-on-one, and I'm not worried about
yeah,
being on an island by myself for 3 days.
exactly. Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
um, so any plans in the future? What does a day in the life look like for, Division III athlete? Do you guys have workouts? Do you guys have team practices? I mean, how are those typically structured with your schedule?
Yeah, so this fall we do morning practices in the fall. So 7 to 9 is like coach puts together a couple of putting or chipping drills and then maybe some range work. And then we all head back to school, go to our classes, and then we go play 9 or 12 holes in the afternoon, sometimes 18. And uh, do that. I would Tuesday through Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday we have um, qualifying or a tournament. And then Monday's off. This year's a little different because a lot of our tournaments are on Monday, Tuesday. Um, so that's that's been a change. So we're gonna miss quite a bit of school this year, but I mean, every school is pretty accommodating to student athletes, so it'll work out. But yeah, it's so then we get Saturdays sometimes off, and then Sunday's a practice round, Monday, Tuesday tournament, Wednesday off. Whatever, when we ever have qualifying or the tournament, the day following of is often off. And so, yeah,
What's
but
qualifying, just for anyone that doesn't know?
right. Qualifying is like, so we carry 9 guys on the team, but when you go and play, the team you put together to compete is 5 guys. And so you need to have a qualifying weekend to determine what are your best 5 guys for to put on the A team. And so those are what those qualifying weekends are, a little competition within the team to see who's going to be playing in the to count towards the team score in the tournament.
Is it strictly like a stroke play type format, or is that match?
Yeah, yeah, we've never, I don't know if they even do match play tournaments and uh college. I would be curious if maybe they do it for some head to head, like school versus school. But when you go to these like tournaments, these invites or conference events, it's all stroke play.
Okay, and so your
Mhm.
qualifying then is stroke play as well between your 9 teams.
Yeah, yeah. So the way my coach does it is pure, it's no matter what your swing looks like or whatever, or how you feel like you're playing, it's what are you shooting? What are you averaging? So my coach does the most recent 5 scores. And so whoever has the lowest 5 scoring averages will be the starting 5. And so it's just simple enough.
Sure. And
Hmm.
and I know I'll try to wrap this up for you because I know you got to get out and play 9, maybe take a dollar or two off of your teammate. But
Yeah, no
um,
worries. Yeah.
uh, what has been your best memory so far from your college experience? And then I'd like you to pick one Alaska memory from a golf standpoint that maybe you could just share.
Yeah. Um, let's see. College, I think some of the best is recently, we go out and play 9 holes and we have such a good team where even we do a little 2v2 uh best ball on a Wednesday afternoon and it gets super competitive. We're playing with a meal on the line, who's paying for whose dinner that night or, and so that trash talk and joshing and going out and competing on a just day to day has been the best with, your buddies. And then from Alaska, I would say a recent memory is I mean, I think the state am where, I got to compete in a tournament that I want to win badly. And I've gotten to join this kind of community within the last 3, 4 years. And, it makes me want to compete that much harder, knowing like going at every tournament, it's like, oh, what is Sam gonna shoot this week? And what is Adam gonna shoot this week? And what is Greg gonna shoot this week? And it's so when you compete like that, and then at the end of the day, like you all uh like recap with one another, and you after a good round, every all you guys were like, good plan, Jack, go get him. Like it's encouraging. It makes you want to come back and play that much more. So that's probably a recent memory that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I mean, you know, from the competitive standpoint, we've only got the 2 or 3 tournaments, and so it makes it kind of like the Super Bowl when you're getting ready
Yeah,
for
it's
these
our
things.
majors, it's our
Yeah,
masters. It's yeah.
yeah. And so, from your perspective, I mean, what kind of things would make the golf season more interesting? I mean, would it be beneficial to have, like an elite series or, maybe a stroke play, 18-hole stroke play event, every 2 weeks that was combined with skins? Or, I mean, how do you kind of view the evolution of the AGA moving forward? Would be a great question. I think anyone would be interested in hearing because we're always looking to try to make things better with our limited time frame. And I know
Yeah.
that there's a ton of guys that, want that competitive situation, but there's also a user group that doesn't. And so, what would the ideal kind of competitive golf schedule in the summer look like for Jack Carr?
Guess the ideal one would be, to almost like put a petition out for like these guys who really want to compete within Alaska and like these hyper competitive people who want to go and play in like a season of golf. And so maybe to almost have like a tournament at every course, like getting exposed to within, I guess for me, of being a little selfish, within an hour drive of Anchorage, like going out to Settlers and having a competitive tournament there, going out to Palmer, having a competitive tournament there, and kind of being able to get the same group of guys out wanting to win every time would be, uh, I guess, ideal for me. Maybe another match play setup of some kind, some sort of season long like point system, and then do some sort. I think I've been really bummed that I have to leave for college a little early, and I miss the remind me of the name of the Anchorage versus the state
Oh, the
tournament.
Cordis Cup. Yeah.
Like I really want to play in the uh Quartus Cup, and because that just seems like a blast and just timing and everything. So, maybe at some point I'll try and find a way to get to compete in it, but um just maybe a couple more competitive environments like we have at the match play at Stadium where it's the same group of guys just wanting to win it badly would be a blast.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And now obviously our acceptance into the PNGA, leads to
It's
the
huge.
avenue of like, hey, maybe, we're going to have this state team once a year. So now we kind of get our own version of this Ryder Cup where we kind of get to go out and
Hmm.
prove to the, Washingtons and the Oregons, like, hey, we've got guys that can play too. And
Hmm.
yeah, our scores don't look, like 65 every week. But I mean, from what I understand, like, any of these USGA qualifiers I played up here, and, you get a guy that's a +4 comes up and he shoots, 76 instead of 65. And you ask him,
Hmm.
well, you know, what's the biggest shock to you? And he goes, just how difficult it is to score up here because it's just
Yeah.
simply so different, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you get out of all the guys that maybe we have playing all summer, you might be able to count on one hand, maybe two, how many rounds are under 70 because it's just so difficult here.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that whole like I remember I think hearing you say earlier this summer about the whole acceptance into the PNGA, and that's huge because that's solving the issue that I had where I had no family or like family friends living in Washington or Oregon where but like before I got into college where I couldn't go play in a tournament because I had no residency in Oregon or no residency in Washington. So, that acceptance into the PNGA, like now we get to play in those Oregon, Washington tournaments. Like that's a great expansion, and I think that's huge for the Alaska Golf Association.
Yeah, and for the juniors like yourself that are
Exactly.
maybe
Yeah.
trying to get to that level that just didn't have that opportunity before. And so,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
well, I really appreciate your time, Jack. This was a great inaugural conversation, I think, and I really appreciate you being the first one here, and I'm sure that everyone will be tracking how you're doing. And anytime I see your dad, golf with your kids logo
Hmm.
or car on the course, it's always a pleasure to ask how Jack's doing down at Willamette. And so,
Hmm.
wanted to wish you good luck and thank you for coming down to be the first person and we'll obviously be tracking you on the leaderboards this winter, and I'm sure that won't have to look very far down the leaderboard to find your name next summer too.
Yeah. I appreciate it, Sam. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Sam.